the second part is that they are often not under good bibliographic control, and by this I mean that the faculty member may know it exists, but may not know enough of the characteristics of the citation to be able to find it, and so they will then give what they do know to the library, and since the library people are the experts in this area, they're much more likely to find it. We get trained in doing this. Acquisitions staff get very much trained in getting this, of finding the ability to find materials just from a few pieces of information. They may not be as available in the out-of-print book market. I'm saying, okay, for the next two, I'm saying it, I'm not 100% sure. And then privately printed material. All right, last year there were 1 million books published in the United States, new titles, according to what I heard on NPR, WDET. Anybody want to guess how many of them were privately published? Anybody want to guess? Throw out a number. Half of them? More. 3/4 of the books published in the United States last year were privately published. These things can be published by the author. There are now book machines available that if you took the right file to University of Michigan, they would publish a copy of your book, and you would have it in about 30 minutes if everything went well, even less if it really went well. And so people are privately publishing materials. I know of this in part because of the fact of my being a seller, because I get my materials from library sales, garage sales, and rummage sales. And I'm amazed at times of the things that I discover from these sales, because they are not from the commercial market. They have really been items that somebody somewhere has privately published. We've always had vanity presses, and vanity presses would take it, but they had to publish a lot of physical copies, which would wind up in your garage after you gave it to your mother-in-law to prove that really it was a good thing that her son or daughter married you. This is called the mother-in-law book. But the ability to go electronic has vastly simplified this, and the whole thing of print on demand. So that Amazon will take your book. They have a whole website for people who create. And if you give it to them in the appropriate format, they will list it in their catalog. And if you sell any copies, they will give you royalties. And they figure if they don't sell any copies, what do they have to lose except a teeny tiny amount of server space? Because there is also no real risk for them. The other interesting thing about it, that this is also holds true for bands. If you've got a private band anywhere, and you just record 12 songs in your basement that sound horrible, you can still get them listed on Amazon, and they will do your album art. And I don't know about front or back matter, but you can do it. So we have a proliferation of the number of resources that are being privately published. If I'm allowed one other amusing story, a bit off topic, I actually sold a novel that was privately published, and the woman sent me an email thanking me for having it available. And I asked her why she wanted it, because I said, how did you know about this? Well, if I'm reading between the lines, she had a romantic interest in the author of the novel, and he wouldn't give her a copy. And she thought that she'd come out ahead if she actually read his novel and knew what he was writing. So there's all that stuff. On the other, so that may go to the library, but as I said, it's probably maybe even more available on Amazon and the other sources than it is from library sources. The final bit is that it's expensive items beyond the price that the faculty member is willing to pay. So in other words, yes, I will get the $15 book. Yes, I might even get the $25 book. But when it's the $100 book, I'm going to send my liaison in the library a request to buy the material. This is even from pre-internet days, but I remember a long, long time ago getting a call from a faculty member that said, would you please buy these expensive items? I'm buying all the cheaper ones from my grant funding, but I don't think I can afford these. And so this has been a long time, very rational faculty strategy. What are the consequences of all of this to the library? Well, the first one, and in some ways maybe the more important one, is the disintermediation factor. That this is one less reason for the faculty member to interact with the library. And so that if you're getting all your own materials, if you're only rarely interacting with the library, this is an additional reason why you forget that there's a library on campus. The second is that when the faculty member wants to order a book, it gives the library liaison a chance to interact with the faculty member and talk about the other things that the library is doing. So when you say, I've ordered your book for you, and by the way, are there any classes that you would like me to come in and talk to your class? We've got this great new survey that you can interlibrary loan from the catalog without having to fill out any forms. Or we do this and that. And so this is a good way for the liaison, as part of the ordering process, to have the faculty member interact with the library. If the faculty member is purchasing his or her own books, they may be less likely to support the library financially or politically on the supposition that I don't need the library, I'm taking care of it with my own funds, why should I worry whether, I'm all right, Jack. And so that the library may lose political supporters. And finally, I find this an interesting potentiality, is that we may go back to having more departmental libraries. And so that the faculty in a department could decide that they're buying their own books and let it be known that they could either potentially pool these resources either in a separate spot or just by saying, I bought lots and lots of e-books, or I bought lots and lots of physical books, and there's more on my shelves than there used to be. And I know that there's always been lots of books on the shelves, but in the past they often were library books, and it was much more difficult to give somebody else a library book checked out to you that you weren't sure would ever come back than to take the risk that it's at least a book that if it doesn't come back, you're out, but you're not going to have to pay a replacement fee at the library. And so that I could see, again, back to a decentralization so that the materials are concentrated more in the library as a unit than in the central storehouse of the academic library. All right. I think there's also serious consequences to the collection. The first is, again, all right, I need to explain what's happened. Most libraries have got to the point where they buy many fewer items than in the past. And so that the first goal is to purchase the items that faculty want. So that if the faculty are buying the inexpensive common items, it's also these items that I believe will be of more potential use to others. And so if the library, for whatever reason, doesn't know about these items, then we won't be adding them to the collection. And so I won't know because Dr. Giordano wants this book in French literature, that I should get it, and therefore the others who are his students or working on topics similar to his will have it available, and I think he's buying from the library, and he's not my example. Instead, it's sitting on his shelf, and he won't make it accessible the same way. The other side may be just as bad, is that we're building a library of the things that are esoteric and expensive and of less